Hey y'all, how's it going? So I'm here to talk to you today about my TBR vets, like the oldest books, the books that have been sitting on my shelves for the longest time. I've been talking about this once a month for the entire year. Hopefully you're enjoying it. I don't know. But I'm going to do it slightly differently this month, partially because I have a smaller selection of books to talk about, but partially because I want to step back and look at how far I've come up to this point. So let's start by talking about the books that I bought in August 2022. There were three of them, and I still own two of them. Well, okay. Let me back up and look at the information because I'm already saying this all wrong. I bought five books in the month of August, and what I'm trying to tell you is there's two that are still in my TBR that I have not read yet. But let me tell you what happened to the other three. One of them I have read, and that is Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens. I still own that book. It is over on my shelves, and I didn't dislike it, but I also didn't love it. It just kind of felt slow and long and kind of dark and sad, which is kind of what the whole book is, but I realized maybe after reading that book that that's not what I like about Charles Dickens' writing. I like some of his earlier works, and that was literally his last one. So there's that. But because right now I'm keeping everything of his that I've ever read, it's still on the shelves. I did read one of the other books that I hauled during this month, and that is Villette by Charlotte Bronte, and I read that whole book, and man, was that a drag. I'm pretty sure that the only work I like of hers is Jane Eyre, because I've also read, what's the other one where she's in a school, there's a professor. Oh wait, no, that was Villette. I'm thinking of the one that's blue and yellow and also a woman's name that I DNF'd, but I didn't buy that this month, so that's not important. So that book has since been unhauled and out of my life. I thought I was going to read this month, I Know This Much Is True by Wally Lamb. That was a book that I picked, and I thought for sure I was going to get to this month, and I did actually pick it up to try and read it. And then I realized that I don't really want to reread that book. It just sounds too dark and too depressing, and there's just certain types of books that fall on that scale that I just don't want to spend time on, and that is a really long book. I just read like the first chapter and I was like, yeah, no, I really don't want to get back into this particular story, even though I really like his writing, which is pretty straightforward contemporary. So if you haven't read it and you're looking for a really good long read that is pretty heartbreaking and about two brothers, that is one that honestly I could recommend, at least from my past experience. Okay, so that brings us to the two books that are still on my TBR, that I still own, that I still think I might want to read. I don't know, because this is a tricky pair. One of them is The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. I've read a couple of books of his at this point, and I don't know, I find him really boring. And this is one of his longest books. Even though it's a standalone, it is supposed to be in a lot of ways very different than the series that I was working on. We'll see if I get to this and convince myself to read it. I'm holding on to it for now. I'm not planning on reading it anytime soon. My plan with Anthony Trollope is to start with one of his other works first, one of his standalones, like Dr. Wardle's School, which is a standalone but significantly shorter, just to see if there's any version of his writing that I enjoy before I go into one of his mammoth books. So that's the plan with that one. The other work is also by Charles Dickens, and that is Dombey and Son. It's one of the last few works of his that I have left to read, and guys, I am crossing my fingers. I am thinking that Charles Dickens may have been one where there's like a few of his stories here and there that I like, but I don't think he's going to end up being an all-time favorite author at this point. We'll see if Dombey and Son can change my mind. I think I'll like it, but I'm highly doubting it's gonna be like winner, winner, chicken dinner. Anyway, that's it. Those are all the books that I hauled in the month of August. Now let's talk about everything else up to this point. So I'm going to pull it up on my computer so that I can see it, but let me show you all the books that I hauled in 2022 from January through, well, it starts October on the sheet that I have. But basically what you're going to be seeing on your screen is the graphic that I'm using to keep track of how I'm doing. And I've put this together, and I have put on here not every book that I hauled in 2022, but all the ones that I hadn't read yet as of the beginning of this year. And I have included in here the books that I either ended up deciding to DNF and unhaul. Those have a little red tab under them. And you can see that there are quite a few that I finally just decided to just give up on and stop trying to make work. And then you can see all the books that I've gotten to. I've put the pictures there for the ones that I've read so far. And so I am realizing I almost have the entire top row complete, which is feeling pretty good. And this month, what I ended up doing was, instead of going with something that I hauled in August and trying to check off one of those books, I decided to start with like the furthest back, like the oldest book that I owned that I hadn't read yet, and it ended up being The Secret History, and I did read that this month, so that actually feels pretty good. And if you haven't seen the review of that already, you'll see it coming up. But that's how that ended up being read, even though it wasn't a book picked for my TBR game. So my goal is to keep doing that now, is to try and at least once a month, like, sort of start at the beginning and work my way up. So hopefully in the next month or two, you'll see me reading the Poisonwood Bible, The Luminaries, Winter's Tale, and 2666. Those are all pretty long books, the Poisonwood Bible being 450 some odd pages. That's the shortest one of those four that I mentioned. So we'll see if that happens. There's a lot to go. You're only seeing, like I said, up through the beginning of October. December is the biggest month on this list. So I'm definitely not going to get through all my 2022 TBR bets this year, but I'm making really good progress and I'm happy with it. So that's the state of things so far. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I like the fact that I ended up making this graphic though, because it helps to have a visual of like what I need to kind of be working on or want to be working on, and like how long some of these books have sat there. I think that's why you see like almost as many DNFs and unhauls on that chart as you see read books, because once I started putting them on here and looking at them, I went, maybe I really don't want to read this book, and that's why it's sat on my shelf for 4 years. And like, why? Like, because if it's been there for 4 years, like, I can't always say that it's because like, oh, I just haven't gotten to it. No, some of these books I've looked at repeatedly and thought about reading them on a fairly regular basis and just keep going, yeah, no. So I don't know, we'll see. I didn't mention, but all the spaces that were on there that didn't have pictures of books are the ones that like are TBR, to be read. They were unread. And all the ones that had pictures I've already read or unhauled. So that was probably pretty self-evident just by looking at it. But that's what's going on. You have a lot more to see. Maybe as I finish out this video here, I will scroll through and show you the books that are remaining, because I have read some of the books that I've hauled in November and December and that kind of thing this year, but we'll talk about it when we get to those months. For now, that's it for August. Let me know if you are, trying to read some TBR vets, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.